Some Christians point to Jesus' words in the Gospel of Matthew where he says, "When you fast, do not look dismal like the hypocrites. Anoint your head and wash your face." Based on this, critics might say, well, wait a minute. Jesus says, don't look dismal. He says, wash your face, and here you guys are walking around with ashes on your forehead. So what gives? Well, that's a fair question. But I don't think Jesus is forbidding all public expressions of fasting such that we could never have ashes on our forehead as a sign of repentance. In fact, the Old Testament gives us clear examples of corporate, public fasting that included ashes. Take the people of Nineveh in the book of Jonah in chapter 3, verses 5 through 6. They proclaim a fast, they put on sackcloth, and the king sits in ashes. Or consider the book of Nehemiah, chapter 9, verse 1, where we read the sons of Israel were assembled with fasting and in sackcloth and with earth upon their heads. That's public, corporate, and visible penance. Now, someone might say, well, sure, that's Old Testament. Jesus is doing away with that stuff. But is he? Well, I say no. In Matthew chapter 11, verses 20 through 21, Jesus rebukes Chorazin and Bethsaida and says that if the mighty works done there had been done in Tyre and Sidon, they would have repented in sackcloth and ashes. The implication is that Chorazin and Bethsaida should be repenting that way, with sackcloth and ashes. That hardly sounds like Jesus is abolishing public penance. Furthermore, when you move into the New Testament church, you don't see Christians avoiding public fasting. In the Acts of the Apostles, chapter 13, verse 2, believers in Antioch were worshiping the Lord and fasting. That's communal, at least to some degree public. The first century Christian document known as the Didache tells Christians to fast on Wednesdays and Fridays. That's structured, recognizable fasting. And in Acts 27:9, Luke implies that Paul observed, quote-unquote, the fast, likely the Day of Atonement, a time when fasting was widely known and observed. So clearly, the early Christians didn't think Jesus was banning every outward sign of fasting, and if they didn't interpret him that way, well then, neither should we.